Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my most disappointing reads of 2021. So there's only like 2 weeks left in December, and I know that I'm probably not going to read one of my most disappointing books in the next 2 weeks, so I feel comfortable sharing my list with you guys. But before we go ahead and get on into the books, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new bookish content. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, Saturday, and sometimes other days throughout the week. Also, don't forget to check down in the description box below for links to all of my social media, my Buddy Read Discord, and my Patreon, where you can be entered into winning book giveaways. Luckily, I only have 6 books on this list, and when I say that these books are disappointing, doesn't mean that they were necessarily bad. Well, some of them were horrible, and some of them I just had higher expectations for them, and they just didn't meet those expectations. So I'm actually going to order these. I'm going to start with like my least disappointing book and go to my most disappointing book. So let's just go ahead and get on into it. The first one is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. This is an adult standalone fantasy loosely based off of Rumpelstiltskin, and I literally just finished this book and did a full review of it, so I'll link that up in the cards if you want to check it out. And this book definitely was not bad. Like, I liked it. I thought it was very atmospheric. The writing was beautiful, just like Naomi Novik does. Unfortunately, I just failed to connect with the story, with the characters. It follows 3 different women as they are trying to end this eternal winter in this fictional land called Lithbus, and there is a fairy king who is causing these eternal winters, and there is another character who is trying to deal with a demon. My main criticism was how slow this book was, the fact that the 3 point of views were very, very similar, and the book just hopped around too much. There was very little action, and I just did not connect with the story and the characters as much as I was hoping. So I would recommend it. It's a good standalone. It's a great winter read. I was just hoping that I would love it way more than I actually did. The next one is Sherwood by Megan Spooner. This is a YA Robin Hood gender-bent retelling, and I also have a full review for this, so I'll link that up in the cards. And I love retellings. I just do. I've never read the original Robin Hood. I'm just familiar with, like, you know, the pop culture type of Robin Hood movies and books and things like that. And I was super excited to get this. Number one, I love the cover. It's absolutely beautiful. And number two, Hunted by Megan Spooner is one of my favorite, like, YA fantasy novels, and it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So I was just really, really looking forward to Sherwood. And once again, this book was not bad. It follows Miriam, who essentially takes on the persona of Robin Hood. Robin Hood, as we know it, actually never existed. Robin of Locksley existed, but never actually acted as Robin Hood, and Miriam becomes Robin Hood, and it just follows her journey. And I like this book. I just thought that it was boring. And the same criticisms I had for Spinning Silver with regards to the fact that I couldn't connect very much with the story, I couldn't connect very much with the character, is the reason that it was disappointing for me. And honestly, I think this book would have benefited from like some fantastical elements, maybe some magic. I don't know, just the historical aspect, the historical retelling. It just didn't connect with me. I do like Megan Spooner. I'm going to keep reading her work. Sherwood just missed the mark for me, unfortunately. The next book is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is the book that I have wanted to read for the longest time. I've never read anything by this author before. This is a gothic classic romance. And like I said, I was highly anticipating it. I thought I was going to love it, and it just missed the mark. I found our main character to be one of the dullest characters I have ever read in my life. I don't know how she carried on a conversation with anybody. She was not interesting. She didn't do anything. Her thoughts were only about her husband. And she ends up marrying this guy who's like high society, very wealthy. She goes to live with him at his like mansion thing, and she feels like she's constantly being haunted by the, not really the ghost of his previous wife Rebecca, but like the idea of Rebecca kind of having to like fill in her shoes. And I think another reason that I was disappointed by this book is I don't think it stands the test of time really well, because it does have some thriller elements, but nowadays in 2021, it's been done so many times, the little twists in this book, that they were very, very easy to predict, and they weren't shocking. Now, when this book was written, maybe it was the opposite. Maybe these were super shocking twists and ideas, but like nowadays it's just not. So the fact that the main character was boring, the story was slow, it wasn't really creepy, and the twists were predictable made this book a big letdown for me, and I'm not sure I'll read any more of her work. I was interested in reading My Cousin Rachel, but I don't know if I will, just because of my experiences with Rebecca. The next book is Sea of Rust by C. Robert Cargill, and I once again have a full review of this book. I'll link it up in the cards. This is an adult science fiction book, and I had heard really good things about it, and I got it for like $2 off of Book Outlet. And basically, it follows a world where humankind no longer exists, and AIs, androids, occupy Earth. And we follow a little android as she is in the Sea of Rust, which, if I remember correctly, is kind of like the Great Plains area of the United States, where androids basically go off to die if they can't like find a way to repair themselves. And the whole story is about these like types of androids kind of fighting this higher artificial intelligence. So it's like two types of artificial intelligences fighting one another. It was just very bizarre for me. And I felt like the concepts presented were not, sorry, my cat is chewing things. I just felt like the concepts presented were not very unique. They've been very recycled. If you just look at like the Terminator, it reminded me a lot of the Terminator with like the evolution of Skynet. We see just a lot of different ideas echoed in this book that weren't new or interesting. And I also felt like the book was way too action-packed, and it felt like I was reading an action movie, like just guns and shooting and bang bang, and not enough delving into the actual plot and the story. So I thought I was going to really love it, and once again, just missed the mark for me. The next book is Semiosis by Sue Burke. This is another adult science fiction, and it follows a group of characters that leave Earth and they settle on a new planet and basically start a new society. And on this planet, there are certain plants that are sentient, like they think like people. And when I first read that premise, I was like, that sounds so cool. Nothing like I've ever read before. This book is going to be awesome. And in my personal opinion, it was horrible. And I felt like the synopsis, like what I thought the book was going to be about, was only one little snippet of the entire book. So first off, the book follows generations. So you're not following the same characters throughout the whole story. It kind of like each chapter is a different generation as they colonize this planet and then kind of continue to live on this planet. So I never really got invested in any of the characters. But that's not necessarily a turnoff for me. I thought the writing was incredibly dry, incredibly boring, and I wanted to DNF, so I switched to audiobook. And I would have DNF'd if not for the audiobook, because I can just listen while I drive and not have to like do anything. But the writing was, oh my gosh, dry and boring. And then we actually spent more time analyzing like this indigenous population of this planet, like these creatures, when that's not what the book was about. The book was about the relationship between these colonists and these sentient plants that can like think. But that wasn't really explored that well. It was all about these like creatures and the colonists. And I'm like, but why you talk about the plants then? I want to hear about the plants. And there was one plant named Seedland, and he was like a big part of the latter half of the book. But like, I don't know, it just was not well executed. Cool idea, not well executed. And I felt like what I was given is not what I was promised, and the writing was really dry. So unfortunately, I did not like Semiosis, and I will not be continuing the series. And lastly, we have These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. This is a YA Romeo and Juliet retelling. I have not had good experiences with retellings this year, guys. There are 3 retellings on this list. And first off, this is a beautiful cover. And when I first heard Romeo and Juliet retelling, I was like, sounds awesome. But it takes place in 1920s Shanghai, and we have Juliet, who is part of this Chinese gang, and then we have Roma, who's part of this Russian gang. And it is definitely loosely based off of Romeo and Juliet, because in this book, Juliet and Romeo have already had a relationship. So we completely missed out on that whole like initial meeting, initial attraction, you know, understanding that they're coming from warring families or clans or gangs or whatever. That was completely absent from the book, and that's some of the best parts of Romeo and Juliet. And I also really could not stand Juliet. And I thought she was a horrible character. She was sadistic and violent, which I like a good sadistic and violent character. I just finished reading the book in Empire Trilogy, and Jorg is horrible, but it just wasn't executed well. It was almost like the author was trying too hard to make Juliet edgy. And then on the other side, we had Roma, who was like as interesting as a dish towel. Like, there was just no balance between the two protagonists. And then we also had this fantasy element that just did not fit in the story for me. And I felt like the book was just very boring, not enough to keep me interested. I actually put this book down and struggled for a couple months to like pick it up and finish it because nothing about the story, the characters, the fantasy, the world was gripping me. And I was just so disappointed. So I have no intention on reading the sequel. Okay, you guys, that is it for my most disappointing reads of 2021 thus far. Let me know in the comments some of your most disappointing reads, or if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them, and I will see y'all in another video soon. Goodbye!